Then as a doctor working in general practice, I would see sometimes 30 patients in a day, which is not considered to be abnormal. In fact, most GPs see about 30 patients a day on 15-minute consultations. And between those times, they're checking results, writing referrals, administering vaccine, doing their admin. It's a disaster.
I've got a few doctor clients. They are the most burnt out, underpaid, undervalued. Harry, thank you so much for joining me on The Bottom Line.
Pleasure to be here.
I heard you went to a really nice concert last night in Sydney. How was that?
I went to AC/DC. It's a lifelong dream. Been listening to them since I was a teenager, and got to jump around last night with my wife and about 80,000 people.
Oh, wow. Well, I'm glad you could make it in one piece back here in Melbourne, and really happy to have you here. But for those that don't know you, if you look up Dr. Harry Weisinger online, and if you ever circulate your resume anywhere, you have such an amazing and very interesting personal and professional journey. And for those that haven't looked you up, I'd love to unpack who you are and get a bit of a feel for our audience.
Well, I guess professionally speaking, I started life as an optometrist. That was my first degree in optometry, but decided rather than go into clinical practice that I would go into research. So I did a master's and a PhD in nutrition and visual neuroscience. Got interested in other topics while I was doing that, so interested in parts of the brain that control blood pressure, body weight, body fat. So I was a physiologist by training.
Yeah.
And actually, when working as a scientist after that, I realised that the competition for funding was really with cardiologists, was with specialists. Oh. So it made sense to go into medicine so that I could compete for grant funding. So I went into medicine at quite a late age, graduated around 35, and for a while there worked as both a doctor and as a scientist until it all became a bit much, then concentrated on my medical degree. That's how I became a doctor. And then since that time, it really is quite a schizophrenic story.
Kind of is.
Worked in the hospitals as you do, intern and residency and so forth. But then I was brought into the Specsavers business just prior to market entry because I had shares in a small chain of optometry practices which were acquired by Specsavers on market entry.
Into Australia?
Into Australia. So they purchased a small chain, about 20, 25 practices. I had shares in about 6 of them. They were really, they were hobby practices, frankly. And so I was thrust into working with Specsavers, which just took my life in a completely different direction. So at 1 minute I was on the A track, headed to become a clinician, scientist, neurologist, something like that. Next minute I was on the board of Specsavers Australia, heading professional recruitment, professional development, and so forth. So I did that for 3 years, and then one of my roles at Specsavers, as I said, was recruitment. There simply weren't enough optometrists in the country. There hadn't been a new optometry program in 40 years. And so I started lobbying a few of the universities to consider commencing a new optometry program. Deakin took the bait, and I developed a business case for a new optometry program with Deakin. Ended up founding that program. I was the foundation professor there for 5 years, saw through my first graduates, and then went back to Specsavers for another few years. There's more to it, but that's about as much as you want to hear in one bite anyway.
You're an investor, you're a CEO, you're a very strategic person. When I first met you, you taught me something which I'll probably share offline because it's probably not for the podcast. I still use it today, and you probably don't know that. And I will share that with you after. But you're not your traditional person, and you do come across, you have this real innate entrepreneurial, strategic, CEO-like executive thinking. And if you didn't tell me you're a doctor, I wouldn't have a clue. So I love that about you. Take us to maybe your first, bite into entrepreneurship, business ownership. What were the things that you believe made you successful, and do you apply some of those things even today?
My first venture into entrepreneurship was really those optometry practices, that small chain, Vision Crest. But I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. I had a bunch of friends said, "Oh, look, we're opening up a chain of practices. Do you want to invest some money?" And I think in that way, I just knew I wanted more than a job. And I think naturally, I'm personally a risk taker. I'm not in medicine. Obviously, you can't afford to be, but myself, I want to roll the dice. And this was my first opportunity to do that. It didn't work out all that well, except for the fact that Specsavers acquired this chain. And that gave me some of the greatest opportunities I've ever had. In terms of my real first entrepreneurship, that, of course, was working with the founder of Specsavers. So whilst it was, their company, it's a privately owned company by the Perkins family based in Guernsey, and now the largest optometry company in the world, it was a real entrepreneurial spirit to enter the Australian market, disrupt the Australian optometry market, which was pretty staid. I'm sure we have some optometrists listening that probably aren't happy with that. But the fact of the matter was that at the time, you would walk into an optometrist and you had no idea what you were going to pay for your spectacles. It was quite unnerving. I feel a bit like that when I go into the dentist now.
Yeah.
Is it going to be a 200 or 2,000?
Yeah.
So working with the Perkins family and all of the amazing leaders was really a taste of entrepreneurship, leadership, and then, of course, governance, structure, standards, retail, customer offer. I consider myself to be very lucky. I'm the product of the experiences I've had, both in medicine and in business. So since that time, things have changed, and not recently, I mean, it's COVID, so it's all a blur, of course, but it's now 5 years ago that I founded my own medical practice, My Performance Doctor. So that's my chance to be a hard entrepreneur, not the soft entrepreneur of say, a franchisee.
Yeah. I want to unpack My Performance Doctor and really go deep into that, because that's a really cool business that you've got. It's a fast growing industry in a sector that everyone kind of in private equity want to get in there. I read a Fin Review article around all the money that's being, tipped into that sector at the moment. But before we get to that, you mentioned you reported directly to the founder at Specsavers, because we were having lunch in Malvern, I remember, and you told me about your role. And I was like, wow, I wish I had that role. And the role was really, and you can describe it, but as I understand it, you reported directly to the founder, the only one in the Specsavers group that had direct line to the founder, and literally you were his direct only report. And your role was to pretty much disrupt the Specsavers business globally. And you had a budget, quite a significant budget, to go out there globally and figure out how do we not become Kodak? How does Specsavers survive the future? I'd love for you to share some stories, the thinking. How did you even approach that role? And how does that apply to now with AI? And a lot of business owners are scared that not only will their employees maybe lose their jobs, but what do they need to do not to be disrupted? So I want to take us through your thinking and what you learned in that period of time that you were the Specsavers disruptor.
Yeah, well, I'll start with one point of fact is that, of course, Doug had a few reports. I was one of them, but very few reports. But I did have a unique role, and I considered myself to be the agent Q of Specsavers. So I got to tinker around, fly around the world, look at all the emerging technology. I was meeting with the likes of Google DeepMind, IBM Watson Health, all of the instrument manufacturers, be they in Europe, Israel, Asia. It was a fantastic job. I loved my job. And because I got to talk to smart people all day, see the emerging tech, look at how different companies were trying. They had a plug and they were trying to find a socket to fit their plug into, which is one of the problems. You talked about disruption, and I spend a lot of time thinking about disruption. I think a better way of thinking about, this whole area is to think about where the market is today in terms of what it delivers and perfection and the gap between the two. So if you think about the classic example that everyone likes to talk about is Blockbuster.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? So Blockbuster, let's face it, had a great offering. It took us from having to watch movies at the cinema only to being able to watch them in our own home. You could drive down the street, you could go and rent 2 movies for $5.99, whatever it was, take them home, make sure you get them back the next day, otherwise they're going to charge you extra. Okay? And it was a great offer, but was it perfect? Was it exactly what humans want? If a person could tell you what is perfection, their answer wouldn't be drive down the road in my tracksuit pants on a Friday night when it's raining and go and choose 2 new releases which are twice as much as the old releases, etc. So you get what I'm saying. And so Netflix merely wedged themselves between where Blockbuster were offering and perfection. Is Netflix perfect? No, it's not. It's not perfect. You still have to have an internet connection. You still have to only have it on 3 screens at a time, etc. You can only get this many movies because it hasn't got all the movies because you got to go on Hulu or Prime or whatever it is to get the rest. So it's not perfection. There's a gap. There's a gap between the current offer and perfection. I spend all my time as an entrepreneur trying to move up the gap. That's what I'm trying to do. That's what I did at Specsavers. And part of doing that is asking the question, where would the competitor hit me? What are they going to offer that's closer to perfection? So in a way, as my own entrepreneur, like for myself, I'm trying to get closer to perfection. I tend to not like businesses that box customers in because you have to. That's using a different approach to keep customers. So you've had the experience, no doubt. You have a service, I'm not going to name one, you try and cancel the service, and then they use every trick in the book to lock you in. It's different. Instead of making it better and better and better and better, these are different approach. I'm really interested in moving us close to perfection. I guess you talk about AI and how it's going to disrupt, everything. It is disrupting everything. When was the last time you read a 4-page report on your own? Never. I haven't read a 4-page report in a long time. You always get some summary of it. You've got a question, Google it anymore. You go into Chat or Perplexity or whatever, one of the models, and you ask it, at least just for a start, compare this with that. What's the best, software for, editing video, this versus that? How do they compare on price? So there is going to be a lot of disruption, but I come back to the original principle. So for your listeners, whatever I know, whatever that happens to be, I don't claim to be, a particular expert in entrepreneurship, but I do know this. You cannot get beaten by someone offering a service further away from perfection than you. Can you? No. So try to make it closer. That's how I live. I think it's the right way to do things. It's better for people.
I love that because you've actually defined for me what it means to be disruptive. So if I had your role, I'd be looking for better ways of doing things, or can we make more money by maybe cutting shortcuts? I don't know what it is, but what you've defined it really well. Think of what you do. Is it perfect? You may not be able to get to perfection because things don't exist. But if it was, why would you drive down the road in your tracksuit pants, blah, blah, blah? You just get your remote, you press a button. Could that work? And if you can get there, that's what will disrupt that business. Yes. I just love the definition now of what it means. So it allows our business owners to answer that question for their business. Are we perfect? And if we're not, what does it look like, and how do we bridge that gap, and if you keep bridging it. So I love that. But let's talk about My Performance Doctor. So you're on this new venture. It's probably not as new as we know it, but it's still, I would say, startup, entering probably that's growth phase. You've done lots of different things in your journey, and now you're really honing in on this business, My Performance Doctor, which is what you studied as a medical practitioner. I feel like there's a bit of disruption here, Harry, around what you're doing. Take us through what is My Performance Doctor, what services it provides, how is it different, and let's talk through this journey of where you're going to take this business.
I love talking about My Performance Doctor. It's probably the first time in my life I feel like everything I've done beforehand has brought me to this point. And it's a collection of success and failure, of mentors and experiences, and I've seen some amazing technology and some amazing work with amazing doctors, and I've been a patient myself. So I started the practice in COVID or around that time. As I said, it's all a bit of a blur really. That time, originally, my special interest in medicine, in general practice anyway, was sports performance. I'm a amateur cyclist. I was a racing amateur cyclist. Your listeners that are amateur cyclists know that it's almost all you think about, apart from your family, of course. And you're looking for any way to improve your performance. And it doesn't matter if you're 50 or 60 or 70, you still want to do as well as you can. Same with golf and a whole bunch of other things. But anyway, my interest was cycling performance. So my appointment book very quickly was overrun with cyclists, triathletes, other endurance athletes trying to improve their performance. And basically it was a knowledge of the sport itself and the requirements of the sport and the challenges of the sport, combined with an understanding of physiology and medicine and nutrition that allowed me to provide advice for athletes to help them do better. I am happy to report that I took a whole bunch of guys that had a glass ceiling in terms of their performance through to become national champions. I'm not taking all the credit. They had to do the work, and they had a fantastic coach as well, but some guys that just couldn't quite put it together were on the podium pretty quickly. I think I probably have looked after 24 national champions. In any case, my emphasis moved, probably due to my own health concerns, which I don't really want to go into, but let's just say I've had a challenging medical history. And I wanted to move into something that looked like preventative medicine, longevity, and high performance, but high performance people. I consider myself now to be an expert in working with high performance people. Now, high performance people take all different shapes and sizes, but largely they're successful, affluent, health conscious, often wealthy and driven, and they want to win at everything. They want to be the best dad. They want to bench press 120 kilos. They want their mind to be sharp so that in the meeting they're the smartest guy in the room, and they want to make the most money, and they want it, it's just, I love working with these people because I learn so much. They're so interesting, and it's such a diverse group of people. I've ended up now with a practice that's got people that are bonds traders and private equity and mining guys and crypto geniuses and real estate developers and all sorts of things. And it's very interesting to talk to these people.
And take us through the business. So what services do you provide? So it's actually, you're a doctor, you're a GP.
I'm a doctor.
But you have a niche in terms of the patients you look after. So if my daughter has a cold, I'm not going to go to My Performance Doctor, but
Not
it's actually a GP.
Not necessarily.
So take us through this initial core service offering and sort of how do you, because it's a really unique model, and I'd love for our listeners to understand how you've built this out and what the model is, and just understand how you've been able to just squeeze that wedge because it's such a unique product. It just doesn't exist.
Let me start with the problem that we're trying to solve.
Which is where all businesses should start from.
Absolutely.
Right?
Should start with a problem. And it's a problem that exists on both sides of the desk in medicine.
Yeah.
So as a patient, and I'm sure most people listening to the podcast have been patients at some point in their lives, or their loved ones have been patients, it's scary. It's uncertain and it's confusing, and you get conflicting opinions about things. And I think that is far from perfection as far as I'm concerned. So the experience as a patient, and as I said, I've been a patient many times, and I had medical knowledge and it was scary. Then as a doctor working in general practice, I would see sometimes 30 patients in a day, which is not considered to be abnormal by any stretch. In fact, most GPs see about 30 patients a day on 15-minute consultations. And between those times, they're checking results, writing referrals, administering vaccines, going and checking on the patient that's had a faint or whatever, stitching someone up, doing their admin. It's a disaster.
Yeah, the GP, I've got a few doctor clients. They are the most burnt out, underpaid, undervalued.
But think about the experience you're likely to get as a patient that comes in. It's taken you a week to get in.
And you're patient 22
You're
on the
patient,
day.
even if you're patient 7, okay, you've got a laundry list of problems that you've saved up because you don't want to go very often.
Yeah.
It took you a week to get in. Then you sat in the waiting room. The guy's running late because, of course, he's running late because he's got to check all the results and blah, blah, blah. And then you get 2 things into your list and the doctor says, look, we're going to have to leave it at that because we haven't got time. I'll need to book you in for next week. And that's the experience of being a patient, and it's the experience of being a doctor. And that's what I wanted to fix that as a doctor. And for my patients, I want to fix that. So what my performance doctor is at base is a private medical service. We have members, like a gym membership. And that means that you're not bound by consultations. I like to say we do real relationships, not consultations. We're not scared of the hard work of medicine. We want to do medicine. And it doesn't matter how wealthy you are or how healthy you are, you're going to have problems, you're going to have questions. And so we have this model where our members have high access to us. So with the 3 of us doctors in the practice now, our patients can message us almost any time. And because people have such high access, would you believe that they don't book in to see us? Because it's a constant conversation. High access, good quality information, plus I'll tell you about reporting and all that other stuff that we do as well. But when you give people high access and good information, they don't feel that urge to come in and rattle off a laundry list of things because you're dealing with it at the time it occurs. That service is so valuable to people, especially busy people, which is, well, that's everyone, isn't it? And you think about if one of your kids is sick, with our patients, they can message us saying, look, my kid's got croup or whatever. Can you help us out? We can help them. They don't need to go and wait in the waiting room. We're taking the burden off the general practice. We're helping people the way they want to be helped. If you woke up with a hot swollen elbow that was painful and your brother was a doctor, you would text him and you'd say, hey, bro, what's going on here? And your brother would go, well, it could be septic arthritis. I think we need to get that looked at. But at least you've got that information. And then later in the day, your brother go, how'd you go? Did they drain anything off it? Have they done this test? Did they x-ray? That's us. That's what we do. So predominantly, we're a private medical service, but we have expertise in preventative medicine, longevity. So we're on top of all of the research as far as prevention and longevity goes. And then the next layer that we do is reporting. So all of our patients have a variety of wearables, home-based devices. We put them through a surveillance schedule so that nothing sneaks up and bites them. So there's a reactive part to the service and a proactive part to the service. And our resubscription rate is phenomenal. Like, no one leaves us. Once they sign on and they're getting value themselves, they get confidence in their health, they feel better, I think it's how medicine should be delivered. Now, I'm not saying every doctor can work like this, because we need all different types of doctors working in all different environments to make the system work. We're actually taking pressure off the system. And when we bring people into the specialties, we're bringing them in at an earlier stage of their problems: early cardiovascular disease, early metabolic disease, early orthopedic issues, so that people have a chance of living better for longer. That's really what we're trying to do.
I love that. I think definitely doctors are really stretched. You can see it in the clients that I have as a patient when I go to visit the doctors. They're really you're trying to run a business as well as be a doctor. And I love what you've done there. Take us through your growth journey. So, as on the entrepreneur lens, you've created this model, you've created this business, which is still early stages. There's not many of you around. What does it look like? How do we scale? What is your thinking around what does My Performance Doctor look like? I know it's your early stages, but it's getting so much momentum now. And with these sticky clients, is there a plan, and what does that plan look like?
Well, there's always a plan. Whether it's a good one or not remains to be seen. As I said, I think what we're doing at My Performance Doctor is adding real value. Our patients love what we do. It has been, for the large part of the practice's existence, been me as the sole doctor. And now I'm actually quite limited in how many more patients I can take. I believe in what we're doing so much, and I believe we're doing so much good, that it's forced me to systematize and take myself out of the hot seat, if you will, or try and digitize what I do, systematize what I do. So to that end, I have a tech team of 6 people now. We're building tech. I've got a customer service team that's about 20. This is all servicing a very small number of patients too, because I have a philosophy that great person, shit system, shit outcome. Shit person, great system, great outcome. I want to be able to give a great outcome, and I want the system to help deliver that. So that's, that's really where my emphasis is at the moment. Now, I happen to have great people as well, which really accelerates things. So I've recruited 2 fantastic doctors. And what I'm trying to do now is let them be themselves within a framework that is now, as far as I'm concerned, proven. Yeah. So that's
it's like the Specsavers moment in medicine and GP in a unique lane. And you're probably taking a lot of the learnings of probably what not Specsavers have done, but that model of system, process, color, that whole thing. I love that.
If I could in any way reflect what Specsavers have done, I'll be very happy. I mean, that is a phenomenal business. To keep the quality, and I know people listening to the podcast may have had a bad experience here or there, but it literally is millions of patients a year being served at a very high level. If I can deliver some of that, and it's true, the way I think is I want people to share in the value. I want them to succeed. So that's what my team and the new doctors are going to do, and I hope that I can achieve anything like that.
So you sort of reeled off the type of patients that you have, and they're, high performers, executives, semi-professional athletes, some professional. Mm-hmm. What patterns or behaviors do they all share?
They're all people, and that's about the commonality. So everyone is different. It really is, and in your business, and the listeners will know too, that we like it. It's helpful to categorize our customers just so that we can fit the offer and fit the service for that type of person. If you had infinite types, it doesn't really help.
No,
right? You can't do that. So we've tried to figure out the types, and actually the best I can do is to come up with the different feelings that my customers are looking for. Some customers are looking to feel better. Some customers are looking to feel smarter.
Okay.
And so the difference might be, I'm not sleeping so well. I'm too heavy. I'm not as fast as I used to be. I'm getting injured more. So they want to feel better. Some want to feel smarter. And by that, they want to skip the queue. They don't want to sit in the waiting room. They want to fast track into the gastroenterologist, etc. They want the script delivered to their phone. They feel smarter.
Oh, yeah. So it's like the going to Disneyland and having the fast pass.
Exactly like the fast pass. Then there's some that want to feel clearer. So you imagine medicine is set up as a very reactive industry. So it's not geared up to prevent. So it waits for you to get a symptom. Because if you go to a doctor today and they ask you, how can I help you today? And you say, nothing really. I just want to know if I'm okay. They'll say, well, are you okay? And you'll say, I think so. And they'll go, good. See you next time.
Yeah, I know, but that's
But it's not
problem.
true. But it's not true. Well, and you cannot blame medicine for this. Medicine, it grew out of this. It's been trained in this. It's funded for this. It's not set up for any other way than reaction. But that's not to say that the early signs of cardiovascular disease, metabolic disease, cancer, neurodegeneration,
Diabetes,
all of that, that's not to say they're not there already. In me, they were there in my 20s, right? If I had a me when I was in my 20s, I'd probably be in a lot better shape than I am now.
Yeah. Let's talk about the shape. I want to look after myself. For me, I don't know which bucket I fit in, but I have a lot of weight on my shoulders with the businesses that I run and the people that are involved. And I think I have to say I do want to be the best dad that I can be. So I want to be fit for them and healthy. So what would someone that's an executive, maybe doesn't have huge amounts of time to train, can get out there here and bit, what would you tell them to do? Just the basics: bloods, exercise, sleep. Should they wear a device? Give these listeners, our entrepreneurs is coming to Christmas. We're recording late November. They're stressed out. What would you do if they can't get into your practice? What are the things that they should be doing? What vitamins should they be taking? Take us through a bit of a journey while I've got you, maybe for the next 15 minutes.
Sure. So my canned answer for this question is it's a bit like looking into a mansion through a keyhole. It's difficult to do. You don't see a lot. You're guessing. You can guess because common things are common. What I'd rather do is take you through a framework that I use that I think it's the only way I can process the amount of health information that's in the world today. If you're on Instagram or TikTok for younger people or Facebook, it is like drinking from a fire hose. This peptide, that sauna, that cold plunge, this vitamin, that, where to even begin. So I'm a health information consumer myself, and I've got to stay on top of the literature, and I've got to answer my patients' questions. So I've got my work cut out for me. And to stop me having a nervous breakdown, I had to create a framework. And the framework goes like this. The most important thing I think guys like us can do is, as in business, have a risk assessment. Number one, if you run a business and you've got your business up to $1 million, $2 million, $5 million, $10 million, and you don't have a risk management plan or a risk assessment, you could be hit over the back of the head and find yourself without a business. And it's the same with your body. We know that while the life expectancy in Australia is, say, 81 for men and 84 for women, and that health declines maybe a decade before that, we also know that young people die, middle-aged people die. So from a population point of view, I can sit here across the way and I go, you're a young guy, chances are nothing's happening. But do I know on an individual level? Of course not. So if you have the means and you have the right doctor to partner with, then you should be doing a risk assessment. Now, you can spend almost any amount of money on a risk assessment. You can go to the US and get all sorts of crazy tests done. But I would think you should have an assessment that includes an understanding of your own family history, because that's cheap or even free to do.
Is that just talking to mum and dad?
Talking to mum and dad.
Saying what
did exactly, what did grandma and grandpa have? What about uncles and aunts, siblings? Just think that's a starting point.
Yep.
Okay, it's not the highest specificity nor sensitivity way of doing it, but it's a start. Then you have to look at more investigation type things. I think comprehensive blood testing, but in particular looking for metabolic dysfunction. So we know that a lot of chronic disease is driven from metabolic dysfunction, which is the way that our body handles or fails to handle glucose, and insulin resistance are harbingers of things that can go wrong down the track. It's no coincidence that maybe half of all the drugs that have been repurposed as longevity drugs are diabetes drugs. That tells you almost everything you need to know about how important it is to manage blood sugar. So I think a basic blood test, a glucose tolerance test, some other things, is a very cheap, easy, accessible risk management measure. That's the first thing. Then there's imaging. So nowadays we have the luxury. We didn't have this luxury even 5 years ago. You can't go and have a CAT scan every year to look for cancer because you'll die of cancer from over CAT scanning, right? But with MRI, which has no ionizing radiation, we're now in a luxurious position for those that can afford it to have an MRI. So I have all my patients undergo a particular sequence of whole body MRI. There's probably some doctors listening to the podcast pulling their hair out. But if you don't look, you don't find out. And it's important to get not just any MRI. You know, you need a particular type of MRI, and you need a radiologist that is good at reading whole body MRIs, that isn't going to call every cyst a tumour or whatever, okay? There's some very cheap genetic tests. I'm not going to tell you to do these.
No, I love this. Just keep going. Genetic.
Well, genetic testing, I would think one thing you could do is a fitness test. So I have all my patients undergo a formal VO2 max test. It's a ramp test. It's painful, but it's over quickly. It's over in about 12 minutes for most people after a warm-up. And, VO2 max is a really good indicator of your state of health. The reason it's a good indicator is you think about getting to the point where you're using the maximum amount of oxygen that your body can use. You need your heart, your lungs, your neuromuscular system, and your brain all working. And you have to be motivated to do it. So all those things need a tick next to them to deliver a good VO2 max. And we know that just moving from one quartile to the next just about halves the risk of death of all causes. So that's an easy one. I would say that constitutes reasonable risk management. The second thing I'd say, the second level, and all my patients are working on this, is their body. Once you've done a risk assessment, or not even once, you do this at the same time, you have to be working on your body. You have to pick up a weight. You have to get your heart pumping. You have to be blowing. You've got to do something to improve your aerobic fitness and your strength. We know that declines with age. And we know that quality of life is directly related to how strong and fit we are. I heard the other day on a podcast, to have sex takes a particular level of fitness. And if you want to have sex in your 70s or whatever, you better get fit now, right? Yeah. Because you need a VO2 of 30, to be able to even do it, right? Let alone what Angus Young did on stage yesterday. Yeah. So that's really important, working on your body.
Yeah.
The next thing I think anyone can do is, it's a little harder, but you mentioned wearables. I think I call these slow burns. things that make no difference day to day. If you sleep well, bad, day to day, it makes no difference to your health. Blood sugar high, low, day to day, no difference. High blood pressure, no difference. Inflammation, no difference. Gut health, no difference. But 10 years of bad gut health, 10 years of high blood pressure, 10 years of high blood sugar, 10 years of inflammation, could be life and death. That's how I think about it.
Do you wear a I've seen them because you can get all this stuff now. It's pretty cool. The insulin, the thing that the wearable that tells you your blood sugar.
Continuous glucose monitor.
That's the one.
I wear everything.
And they're not expensive to do. They're easy to do. And it's just, do you think that because you're a bit of you're not an accountant, but you're a stats man. Is it just wearables, having that, and then knowing what happens to your body and adjusting?
I think you can attribute a large portion of the effect to the very act of looking. So in physics, known as the Hawthorne effect, the act of looking influences the outcome.
Yeah.
Like a report, like a P&L. The fact you look at the P&L makes a difference the next month.
Yeah, because you're like, oh shit, we thought we were going bad, didn't think it was that bad. We need to move this, this, and this. So I think the data. I mean, even though data influences behavior. Interesting. So if I wasn't super wealthy but not super poor, you recommend
joining my performance doctor? Yeah.
So, well, you're limited to customers. You're not there yet. Are you taking any patients, Harry?
I am. We have 3 doctors in the practice now, so I am currently taking patients.
If you can't get in or you don't live in the state,
no, it doesn't. No,
that doesn't matter.
We have no borders. We're all we're in Australia, New Zealand, the UK.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
So for those that still don't want,
for those of you that still don't want to,
just a little tick, listen to the podcast and get some advice. What's the next steps? You've done all the steps. What would you, for those that didn't even do that? We know certain things move the needle. So you said maybe join the gym or lift weights, get your heart rate pumping, so your heart rate goes up and down. So you got a bit of cardiovascular. Wear some devices so you know what's happening in your body. Learn what those devices do. Do you recommend the continuous glucose monitor? I've always really wanted to wear one.
It's not my first recommendation. My first recommendation would be a set of scales at home.
Scales? Didn't even think about it. I have to say, she's going to hate me telling this. My wife weighs herself 4 times a day.
Okay.
And I'm like, what are you doing? You're currently obsessed. She's grammaging her weight. She's super fit.
She won't be gaining weight.
Nah.
Okay, so you think about
she manages her weight to grams, man.
That's full on. And
we take the scales overseas. It goes in
I get it. Hey, I've worked with all sorts of people. But
she's amazing.
But you think about when we've all done this. We've all been on a health kick, and let's say you're trying to lose a few kilos. You're on the scales twice a day, right?
Yeah, when you're doing it.
When you're doing it, and when you're low self-esteem, and you're not losing weight, and you're eating pizzas and takeout and all that sort of crap.
You're not on the scale.
You don't go near the scales
because you know what's happening. Right?
But if you could force yourself to go on the scales, even when you're doing that behaviour, it would change the outcome.
It would. You know what? So I shouldn't swear, but I don't go on the scales because I only go on the scales when I know I'm doing good work.
Actively trying to lose. Yeah, sure. That's everyone, right? That's everyone.
So definitely do that, and then.
But you ask about a CGM. I mean, who's going to look at it for you? So unless look, they're not that difficult. They need. I've been guiding patients on their use for years now, and the technology's not perfect. So you need understanding of that. You need to calibrate. You need to know how it fits into an overall health picture.
Yeah.
And you need to be the type of personality that doesn't panic.
Yeah.
If you see a really high or really low number.
Yeah, because that's the other thing.
We've
got to look after the mental health side of things. But and then in terms of sort of, we had a meeting not long ago and we talked about, peptides and vitamins and things like that. Outside of the physical activities that we do, what are the things that, simple wins? Vitamin D. I know that in Australia, especially during winter in Melbourne, we lose a bit of that. Do you have a quick win? These are the core 4 things you need to take as well as all the movements.
Not really, but I do believe that every Australian, more or less, needs to take vitamin D because almost none of us get enough sunlight, and we need vitamin D to absorb calcium from the diet. So if you don't absorb calcium from the diet, you'll be absorbing it from your bones. And low bone density is a massive, massive problem for us. And as we're living longer, there's nothing worse than being immobilized due to a fracture in your early 70s or something like that. I actually have patients that are osteopenic, so have low bone density in their 30s and 40s.
Does that muscle then has to grow? Is that
No,
like
this
the
is bone.
solution? But then do you fix it by being strong in the gym?
I mean, you fix it with correcting any deficiency for a start. Then resistance training can help, and then there's medication on top of that, and hopefully some cure down the track. I'm not sure. In terms of other things I'd recommend, there's a few kind of no-brainers out there, I think. For those that are doing resistance training, creatine appears to be evidence-based. I would say fish oil, omega-3 fatty acids, another no-brainer. People with the highest levels of omega-3 have a much lower all-cause mortality than those with the lowest levels, and almost no one in this country eats enough fish, and they're essential, so you need to eat them to get them. You can't make them yourself. And finally, I think most of us suffer as we get older from aches and pains and issues relating to dysregulated inflammation, which is why I'm a big advocate of curcumin. And in particular, as you know, I have a supplement company based in the UK called Kirk, which has taken us a long time to develop the curcumin product that we now have, which is really well absorbed and really well liked by customers in terms of its anti-inflammatory, pain-relieving effect. And it's natural, so it's not a drug.
I earlier mentioned the amount of money that's coming into this sector. There's a handful of sort of medical businesses that are sort of doing, maybe not what you're doing, but in that space. Just looking ahead, where do you see performance medicine, preventative health heading into the next 5 to 10 years?
They're different, aren't they? I see actually a break between health and wellness. I actually don't see them as the same. I think what the vast majority of people need is health advice, health information, health care. That's what interests me the most, is health and the opposite side of health, which is bad health, and helping to fix and prevent that. In terms of wellness, you're absolutely right. There is a flood of money coming into wellness. Again, my Instagram feed is hammering me with this cold plunge and that sauna and every which thing that I consider to be icing on the cake. I think this stuff is wonderful if you've got your house in order. But the downside, in my view, if there is a downside of wellness, maybe there isn't, because you feel good, at the very least you feel good, is that there might be people that think by working on their wellness that they are automatically healthy, right? So I'm not an expert in wellness. I'm not. I'm an expert in health and what it takes to get and keep people healthy. I do believe there are plenty of people that think they're healthy and are fully engaged in things like wellness studios and spas and clubs and what have you, that actually haven't tended to the foundational layers of risk management, body, slow burns, and so forth. All that said, I love that stuff. You know, I've got a sauna in my backyard. I do cold plunge. My bedroom is an altitude chamber, right?
I know this.
All right, but I think that's the icing.
Yeah.
So
that's the last. So what I'm hearing here is, if you want to get healthy, yes, sauna and sponge bath is good, but if you're eating pizzas and burgers,
and they're usually not,
running,
but they're usually not.
No, they're not.
So people that are into wellness are usually pretty.
But But people love the fad though. It could be, doing create. They might be taking creatine but not working out, or they're not. It's just those things. It's actually going core. Before you put the icing, you got to make the cake.
Absolutely.
And it's do the.
I think it's
core
unprovable too.
principles.
I
Yeah.
think a lot of that stuff, again, I'm not saying it doesn't work, because if feeling good is a part of well-being, which it is, then it's doing something. But is it doing what people think it's doing? I'm not sure the evidence is there. I mean, we don't have evidence for a whole bunch of stuff that we need evidence for, let alone whether that red light therapy, is helping you look younger in 20 years' time. I don't know.
There's so many things. It's if you actually bought or did everything that's out there, you'd have no time for anything. For
And
your
there are
fatherhood, being a husband, you couldn't do any of that, including work. You'd just be 100% trying to live forever, and then you die living forever.
So it is interesting. And look, I do go to some conferences, and they there's talk of, maybe not the next generation, but the one after that being the last generation that will die. So
can you tell us more about that? Are they saying that because people are going to be more and more conscious of this,
No.
and because of that, they're going to spend money in sectors?
No, not at all.
What is it?
What it is a field of medicine called geroscience, and it's actually a field of medicine that is investigating the actual process of aging. So why do we age? How do we age? And if we can figure out those exact mechanisms and those exact pathways, can we disrupt that? And so that's obviously there's investment in that. And so I go to one or two conferences a year just to make sure it keeps me insane, because that stuff makes me insane listening to it. But that's a whole body of work going on. I believe it's slow going. It'll be accelerated by AI, obviously, as everything will be. I've even heard, I probably won't relay this properly, but I've even heard about extracorporeal longevity, which is where your body's dead but your mind is alive still.
Oh, wow.
And therefore you're still
You're
alive,
alive.
because what are you other than your mind?
Wow.
So very interesting.
Well, look, Dr. Harry, you are an amazing individual. I'm going to share that story with you after the mic goes off, as to the thing that I'll never forget what you said to me. But I want to say I wish you all the best with My Performance Doctor. I believe in it. It's going to be an amazing business. You do amazing work for people. And thank you for joining me on The Bottom Line and sharing your health journey, as well as how others can get better in I was going to say in the bedroom, but get better. wrong doctor, but get better in their health.
My pleasure, Sivan. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Harry.